Thank you so much, Romeo Busiku, for that conversation. Quite pertinent issues that are being raised right there by, of course, the two guests that you are having right there. Many thanks for highlighting those. So here in studios, we'll be able to just break that down and get to understand what can we do. Because around the world, young people are up in arms, like we said, protesting against everything. We're looking from corruption to economic injustices to different issues that they're saying, you know what, the only language that our leaders understand is picketing. Is there an alternative? So in studios we are having, I do have Mr. Mpima Jamir. Of course, he is an aspiring member of parliament for Lubaga South. Of course, he's NRM leaning. Thank you so much for making time. Welcome to Morning at NTV.
Thank you very much.
All right. Next to him is Mr. Chifampa Siraj, not a new face right here on the show. Political analyst right here in the country. Opposition leaning, though. Many thanks for joining us. Welcome to Morning at NTV.
Thank you for having me. Good morning, our viewers.
Good morning. So my first question to you would be, what is this that you're seeing across the globe? What's so special about this year? You know, of course, it's been starting from the past 2 years, not so loud, but this is the time the world is waking up, that close to all the nations have their youth disgruntled. Why do you think we're having this, Mr. Chifampa?
Thank you so much. Yesterday, while in class, we had a conversation over the past leaders Uganda has had. And if not all of them, majority of them were expelled from Makerere University. So when I saw the host saying that, is it rioting and striking the only way that people can use? Sometimes it's okay for people to strike. So why do we have this? Maybe the world today has failed to prescribe the right medicine to the disease that is at hand right at the moment. That we have a world that has got a young population that is more than the old ones. But the old people are still occupying those spaces, and they fail to engage the young people on issues that concern them. I'll give an example. The issues of universities in Uganda. There are several shrinking spaces of people to express themselves. In the past, Makerere University, maybe he was there. Makerere University, people would engage and have debates and debate issues, and people would leave convinced that they've lost the day as a result of debating and exchanging ideas ideologically and logically. Unfortunately, today, as we speak, such spaces are no longer available. There were several talk shows on radio stations where people would come on Chimeza, those open talk forums, and talk. You know, when someone speaks out his mind, there is no reason, there is no space that is left for him to pile anger inside of him. Like you saw the young man from Makerere University saying that the anger that is in the youth today has been piling over time. So the fact that governments today, most especially the NRM government in Uganda, has closed off all the avenues through which the youth could engage and express their opinions.
Right.
So it has caused the anger that we're seeing today.
All right. So, Mr. Mpima, do you agree with Mr. Siraj? Him saying that, you know what, the spaces and the avenues of these young people expressing themselves are by the day shrinking. Of course, you know what has been happening, even right here. Of course, government having battles with the media. And of course, just the other day, we're having UCC pushing on different directives on, you know, media spaces. We're looking at producers, editors, and stuff like that, just shrinking our freedom. Do you think this is a time bomb? And do you think NRM, with the directives that has been given, pretty much been giving to the media spaces, shrinking the expression of the young people, would escalate the chances of us seeing what is happening in the world, happening in Uganda?
Yeah, thank you very much. Good morning, our viewers. First of all, I do not agree that the youth have not had a chance to express themselves and pass over the message to the government. Actually, there are many avenues that youth can pass their information. First of all, in Makerere, they have an FM radio station that articulates their issues and everyone listens to them. So it is not true that they don't have anywhere to advance. Secondly, they have leaders. They elect leaders at the guild president and other ministers. They have GRC representative. Every hall of residence sends representatives to the guild committee. They can advance their views and they are listened to. But the problem is programs, youth programs are not, the government does enough, it puts in enough effort to put up programs to help the youth. However, the problems of these programs are not sorted in time. When youth put up their problems and say, for example, youth livelihood program, this is not working out, people are not benefiting from it, the government is not listening. They are not listening to them. They are saying these youth are trouble causers. I've been talking to for example, in Lubaga, we have the NRM isolated youth. These people are coming up, they are saying, you guys, you are not listening to us. We have problems. We have been left behind. Because worldwide, if you look worldwide, there is a growing gap between the poor and the rich.
Correct.
And now the rich are these people, the oldie folks, who have been in government, who have been around. They have established themselves, and they are blocking other people from entering the rich section. So the youth find themselves being poor. They are not helped. And for example, the jobs. If our civil servants, they don't leave their jobs. They stay in their jobs forever. The youth cannot enter in government jobs. If you want to get a government job, you have to bribe for the job.
Right.
And these rich guys also bribe to stay there in those jobs.
And who is responsible then for stopping that particular cycle? Don't you think the government has failed its young people by not stopping that cycle?
First of all, let us be clear that not all youth are disgruntled in Uganda or even in the world. Not all of them. There are rich youth, for example. Honorable Chagulanyi is a rich man. Honorable Zake is a rich man. Basalirwa is a rich man. Honorable Muhammad Nsereko of Central. These are rich guys and they are youth. So not all youth are disgruntled. But the only disgruntled youth, they are all, okay, there are people who are disgruntled in the world that are youth. But the government has to come to leave issues of youth to the youth.
First, what do you mean? Leave the issues of the youth to the youth? When we're looking at statistics right here in the country, whereby out of every 10 young people, 4
are unemployed.
Yes.
Yes, first of all, if you look at representation of youth in parliament, there are only 5 MPs. 1 female youth MP for the whole of Uganda. So how can this be sorted? If the youth voice is to reach parliament, to rectify policies helping the youth, they should increase youth representatives in parliament so that they are not free, because their voice is not coming out well. For the women, you can see every district is electing a woman representative. The youth are not enough. Their voice is not coming out well. So parliament has to come up and say the youth are disgruntled. How can we help them for their voice to be heard? Because they are not hearing them well. And the solution of demonstrations, it is something that is being brought out by media. Internationally, people are coming out to say the only solution is demonstration. Because if people are demonstrating in Iraq, they have a problem. They're demonstrating in Egypt. They're demonstrating everywhere. They have a problem. Can we also try that? Because they are seeing it on CNN.
Not really. Mr. Chifampa, yes, Mr. Chifampa, you're also a student at Makerere. And do you think the students at Makerere are rioting, are picketing, because they're borrowing it from the world phenomenon? What's happening in Hong Kong, what's happening in Iraq, what's happening in Syria, Spain, all these other external states. Do you think it's because of that, or indeed they have an issue that they ought to be sorted out, an issue they have raised over time and has not been sorted out? To
a lesser extent, that argument can come, though far-fetched. However, the issues in Makerere, the issues in the country, I mean, in fact, by the way, I do not want to zero myself or keep myself on a smaller area of Makerere. In fact, I'm in Makerere, I'm a GRC, I know what I'm talking about, that the spaces where people express themselves have been shrinking over time. But anyway, coming to the issue of not addressing the youth questions, they raise questions, but government has failed to provide for answers. My brother coming here and say that not all youth are disgruntled, not all youth are frustrated. We just look at percentages. In fact, the 4 people you're talking about, today, 84% of the youth in Uganda are unemployed. Just in Lubaga South, where he says he's coming, go on betting houses and see how many youth are there. Go into the ghettos and see how many youth have become drug addicts. Do they sit anywhere and agree that we should take drugs? Not at all. Why do they take drugs? Because people are hopeless. They don't see a future. Some of them have gone to school and they don't see themselves being employed. They don't see themselves making it in the future.
Right.
Picking out just a few individuals, so and so, members of parliament. We're not talking about members of parliament. We are talking about youth who are the majority, who constitute 78% of this country as the entire population.
Right.
But when you look at them and you have 84% of them unemployed, that's
What
alarming.
is your authority for that?
That's an alarming.
Let me ask you, Mr. Mpima, you are aspiring to be the Member of Parliament of Lubaga South come 2021. And you know that indeed the youth are out there crying. I'm sure you've interacted with them. Just yesterday we did, highlight a story of over 100 young people who were, pretty much arrested because they were found abusing drugs, so to speak. Now, what would be your plan once you're elected in office to make sure that instead of looking at this number of youth as a liability, we transform that and harness the demographic dividend that is there in that particular space? What's your plan?
Yeah, first of all, the general theory is that the youth who are actively engaged in employment and other activities, they are most likely to shun away from violence because they are active doing something. So the solution to this problem of rioting and youth being disgruntled is to get for them something to do.
What is that something to do?
Creating employment for the youth. The government is not creating employment at a rate which is enough to satisfy the rate at which people become youth. First, for example, in South Africa, in India, a million people become youth every month. That is, they become 18 years every month.
Correct.
So, but the government cannot create 1 million jobs every month. So they have to come up with more ways to create more jobs for the youth to be assimilated and be employed and become active.
Does the quality of jobs concern you? Because we've been having conversations with regards to, the foreign pretty much investments that are being, established right here in the country, different industries being established right here in the country. And the conversation has been, the young people are being assimilated in these spaces to offer labor. But what they're being paid does not commensurate with what they're giving off. And of course, we were having a debate of, the minimum wage bill. And the president just the other day said, hey, we don't need this. We don't need to put a cap on that. So don't you think at the end of the day, we're still not giving the youth that quality of life that they're crying out to get? Mr. Chifampa.
First of all, when listening to NRM people speaking, I really realized that we still have a long way to go for as long as we still have such kind of people in office. First of all, what do we need to do for the youth? Empower the youth. Look at the quality of education that we're having today. We are only producing people with big heads, very weak hands, and small hearts. What do I mean? That they pound a lot of information into their heads that empowers them just to grab whatever is around. Their hands are very small that they cannot work and get a decent living out of genuine working and earning. Today, what we are seeing, people are having very small hearts. They don't even feel anything. Taking money that is meant for patients that are for HIV and whatever. You see the corruption in the country today. So, first of all, these people have not understood what they are supposed to do for the youth. Look at all the programs they've come up with. The Youth Livelihood Fund. Can they come up with statistics that show that as a result of this, these are the lives of the youth that we've tried to improve? Today, the president is saying that he's killing Ugandans on tailoring, saloon, and many other kind of skills that he's keeping them.
Is in that empowerment?
But are they competitive? Are they competitive in the global economy that we're talking about? A youth in Uganda who was trained somewhere to know the designs of a dress, will he be able to compete with youth in China, in Singapore, in Bangladesh, where these genes and whatever are coming from?
So what you're saying is that in the different spaces that government has established, they're still not giving them that, global standard scale.
Edge, the global standard scale edge, where they can easily compete. Because today, the world has become a global village. That today, a youth here is competing with youth in Korea, where for them they're producing phones, the Samsung and the technology, but the youth in Uganda are trained how to make crafts or the shoes that are whatever.
All right,
craft
so
shoes.
before we wrap this conversation up, I want us to hammer down on the minimum wage bill. You know, the president over time, every day when you look at the newspapers, something new is being established, either an industry by some Chinese group, investors and stuff like that. And the lingo that goes with that is that we are creating employment for our youth. But when you go to these particular industries, the workers
Even
are
the quality of employment that
disgruntled.
you're talking about.
Even the quality of employment is people, manual labor.
manual laborers.
Does that concern you? Especially, I want Mr. Mpima to come on this one. It's okay, we can have manual labor, but the quality of pay, don't you think that's a conversation we ought to have as we wrap this up?
Of course, I agree that the quality of pay is very low and it has to be improved. The president is looking at two sides. First of all, if I'm an employer and I can afford a certain price for someone, if that price is fixed at a higher rate, I'm free to chase away that person. So we are looking at two sides, that if we fix the minimum wage and say, this is the minimum that you're supposed to pay, for example, for a house girl, you're supposed to pay a house girl 150,000. Most people are going to say, we don't need house girls anymore. So they are going to lose jobs. On the other side, people need to get enough money to improve their lives. So we have to have a discussion, a conversation on how to get a middle ground so that people don't lose their jobs.
And we also don't lose out on the
Yeah,
investments.
we don't lose out.
All right, Mr. Chifampa, last remarks.
My last remarks, first of all, the issue of minimum wage, is subject for debate. We can always debate it and see whether we want it at the moment or not. However, I have 2 points to make.
Okay.
First of all, about the youth, life is dynamic. That someone is expected to be doing something at a particular time.
Right.
Today, as we speak, the old people, starting with the president, who is 80 plus whatever years, have blocked these spaces for the youth to express their political potentials and abilities. Today, as we speak, all positions that take key decisions in this country are occupied by old people. I think at around 55 or 60, someone should be retiring into public and private service. Of course, advising and giving consultancy services to the youth to take over.
Right.
But as we speak today, Uganda is fully occupied with old people who have nothing to do with youth agendas, who have nothing to do with youth issues. It's high time, Ugandans, I call upon you, come 2021, to have a youthful leader that will understand our issues, our problems.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much for coming through. We'll have you back again just to dissect that particular conversation. It's a huge conversation that we ought to have. Next time we'll hammer down on the political space that we're in right now. We know that over this particular years and over also when you look at the specifics in this particular states that are now in riots, Hong Kong, for example, it's all political.
For sure.
When you look at Iraq, it's still political. Them saying that we don't want this leader anymore. People have to step down.
Yes.
So, of course, we'll have that conversation next. Of course, we'll try and make sure we find time for that and bring you back in studios. Many thanks for joining us right here. We were hosting Mr. Chifampa Siraj. Of course, he is a political analyst, and also Mr. Mpima. He is an aspiring member of parliament for Lubaga South, of course, NRM leaning. Come 2021, will you give him his votes? Will you give him his votes? Of course. And they're going to be going head to head, if you didn't know, with Mr. Chifampa. Hashtag Morning at NTV. At this point in time, I'd like to link to Mr. Stephen Bida. He's on the roads. Stephen, good morning. What's up on the roads? All right, I understand that Stephen Bida is not yet ready. We'll be linking to him after this short commercial break. Stay with us.